Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome back to the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad, your favorite podcast for learning how to balance between being a functional adult and a raging dumpster fire. Let's be honest, we've all been a bit of a dumpster fire. Joining me today, we have a beautiful and happy married couple, Meredith and Craig. Welcome to the Bachelor Pad. I mean, I know that you guys have a family home now, but you're joining me in our world today. So thank you for making time to be here.
Absolutely. Love
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
I don't even have to ask our normal first question. I know that neither one of you are still single. You're married. We're in a relationship. How long have we been married?
Married now for five years, and been together for 9.
That was a test and you passed it. Because if you got that number wrong, I know that there would have been a conversation.
Yeah.
No, but congratulations. We were talking about this a little earlier before we started recording, but I feel like that's everybody's goal, is to find a partner who they're happy to spend the rest of their life with. Hopefully one day that myself and the rest of the audience can be in your shoes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's amazing. When you have the right relationship, when you're in that marriage, there's nothing better. It's what I would want for anyone.
Yeah.
Like, I'd wish that upon everyone who wants to be in a relationship. I would wish that they have just nothing but an amazing relationship, because it's a cheat code for life, really.
Yeah. And I waited a long time to find my right relationship. Like, I spent 10 years single, very single, like a couple of dates here and there, but really like 10 years very single. So I had to wait a long time, but it was worth it.
You know what? That's something that I can relate to wholeheartedly. I've gone on dates, don't get me wrong. In my better part of my 20s, I have spent single. I've loved a lot of the minutes of it. There are some minutes I wish that I could have shared with somebody, but we'll see. Hopefully it's not a full decade before I find my person, but even if it's a little bit more, the proverb is good things come to those who wait. So guys, if you're waiting for the right person, there's no rush. You know?
That's exactly it. And I will say that it's better to wait and find the right person than it is to settle and jump into the wrong relationship, because she was single for those 10 years and was not willing to settle, whereas I, on the other hand, did not. I was the opposite. I was actually married before, and it was to the wrong person. And it's better to wait and go through finding the right person through that process than it is going through having the wrong person and then coming back and trying to reset.
And because trying to check the boxes, I should be married by this time. I should be hitting these milestones by these ages. Is that kind of pressure you feel that you were feeling?
Totally. Like,
I was feeling it too.
Yeah, there's this life plan that I had, and it was, married by a certain date and go through university, college, and get a good job and all this stuff, and checking off boxes. And then you feel like you're behind, and you maybe jump into a situation that doesn't serve you. And so kudos to you and anyone who is waiting for the right person, the right relationship, the right situation, because that will serve you well.
Now, I wasn't going to ask this, but hearing you guys talk made me think about this. And it's crazy that we decided to do this week, because this is a thought that's been living rent-free in my mind. I love my friends. And I was just talking to somebody. I was like, I never thought I'd be the last one in my friend group to settle down or to have kids. But the way things are trending, there's me and one other person. He's been in a long-term relationship. They're happy, but they haven't taken that next step yet. So we're still kind of even. But most of our other friends that we went to school with, or just in our day-to-day life, they're married with kids, working on their second round of kids. And I'm like, guys, you know this. I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic. I'm cheesy. That's okay. But I've always had this dream that me and my best friend's kids, they'd be the second generation of best friends, if that makes sense. Like, they would go to school together. They would grow up together. And I'm like, your kids, some of them are getting to be like 3 or 4 plus years old. I was like, they're not going to be in the same grade. That's not going to be a real thing. I was just telling my friend that, hey, I need to have a kid this year so that our kids can at least go to high school together. He was like, don't rush it. But it's like, you can't help it sometimes. Sometimes you have this idea or this time clock of where I need to be at this time. Were there certain things that you wanted to do by certain points? And then how did you feel when you either hit those points or didn't get there on time, quote unquote?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like life is doing that to you a lot. And before we started recording, we were talking about turning 30. And I actually found turning 30 to suck a little because I hadn't hit any of the check marks I thought I needed to hit by the time I hit 30. I wasn't rocking my career at 30. I was single at 30, like not even dating, like straight flat single at 30. And my friends were married. Many of them had had at least their first kid by then. So I was feeling that heart. My sister had had her first kid by then, and she's 6 years younger than I am. So, I was really feeling you are not where you're supposed to be in life. So 30 was not a fun birthday for me. The only reason that it was that way was because I was shooting all over myself. I should be doing this. I should have a boyfriend. I should be married. I should have kids. I should be, in this beautiful career. I should have all these things. When really, when I turned 40, fast forward 10 years, 40 was fabulous. I loved turning 40. Yeah, I had him by then. And my career was great. Now, I had some things had fallen into place by then. But the biggest difference between 30 and 40 was I firmly believed at 40, I was exactly where I was meant to be when I was meant to be there. You're not going to hit the things you think you're supposed to hit when you think you're supposed to hit them. The universe is working in your favor, and it's bringing you what you need when you need it. You may not see it in that moment, and that's tough, right? Because you put that pressure on yourself to do that. But it all works out the way it's supposed to work out to give you the life that, you could never have dreamed. I would never have dreamed the life we're living today when I was turning 30. I'm incredibly grateful that I didn't hit any of those boxes at 30. Because if I had hit those boxes at 30, life would be very different today.
Just to echo, because I think it's such an underrated point, is that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Whether or not you have a kid with your best friend at the same time, or they go to high school together, or whatever it is, the universe has a grand plan, and you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Your friend is exactly where they're supposed to be, and you're going to eventually meet the person you're supposed to meet, and you're going to have the kids or not have the kids, or whatever it is, whatever it's supposed to be, it's going to be better than you ever dreamt it was going to be. I went through a process where I thought I was supposed to be further ahead, and I tried to fit a marriage in that wasn't meant for me. It was meant for me because I had it, but it wasn't meant forever for me. But that was part of my journey. I was meant to go through that, learn some valuable lessons, and some of the lessons we just talked about are some of those lessons that I learned on that journey. It's easy to say now, but it's really hard in the moment to think back and be like, okay, yeah, my plan isn't going exactly how I thought, but I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. But if you can take that mindset into basically everything you do, it takes away that expectation, which usually is the reason for why we have this feeling of not meeting expectation or less than. It's because we've set this standard that we're supposed to meet. But if you go into it with no expectation, to live your life, have goals, try to achieve them, but not measure yourself against this future milestone, this perfection, and instead just measure yourself to where you've come from. Not measure yourself forward, but measure yourself from where you started. And so I would say that those are probably two of the most valuable lessons that we've learned while going through this journey of, dang, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. But actually, you are exactly where you're supposed to be.
I think we just had like our own little mini episode right here. You're right. You just end up in the right space. You end up in the right conversation. And I appreciate hearing that from two people who have had the experience of reaching certain milestones outside of when they originally thought and still leading an extraordinary life, one that they feel fulfilled in. So that gives me hope. That reassures me. I feel like if you have younger siblings or a friend who's younger than you and they feel like everything is the end of the world, but then since you've already lived through that, you're like, it's just a breakup or it's just a job. Like you can get it. You'll have another one. You have a better one. But they're like, no, nothing. This was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And then I feel like they hit that, like they finally reach where you're at, and then they have the same experience with somebody younger than them. I feel like that experience, it never really ends. No matter how old you get, there's always somebody who's been where you've been at, and there's going to be somebody who is where you were at some point.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's why it's so good to have coaches and mentors, because no matter what you're trying to do, whether it's relationships, whether it's entrepreneurship, career, whatever it is, whatever your goals are, chances are you're not the first person in the entire world that's tried to achieve that goal. Someone has achieved that goal, which means it can be done, which means there's a path to get there. And so when you run into a massive obstacle, which you're going to do in every endeavor you ever try in your life, it's nice to have someone say, yeah, I know it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. There's a way around it, through it, under it, over it, whatever way. It's nice to have someone who's been there, done that, that can let you know that, yes, it's not the end of it. It feels like it now, but from where I'm sitting, this isn't the end of your world.
And you're 100% correct. It never ends. So like, we may have gone through some stuff that you're looking forward to going through with relationships, but there's still tons of stuff that we look forward in business and other things that there are people miles ahead of us that help us with figuring out how to navigate. It's a never-ending journey that it's a lifelong process.
This season, we focused a lot on preparing for 30. It's a big moment in my life. I guess you don't know this. They know this because we just talked about it, but I'm going to share it with you. Today is the season 2 finale. So what I really am hoping that we'll take away and that you guys will learn is that though we are preparing for that next chapter of our life, sometimes it's not the next chapter. It's the chapter after the next chapter that really hits a climax that you'll really enjoy. Meredith, you were telling me that 30 was not great, but 40 has been a lot better. So for those of you who are listening, who are just starting your 20s, or who are like me, who are exiting, or somewhere in the middle or beyond, maybe this hasn't been the best year or decade or two, but there will come a time where you're like, you know what? I'm owning this. This is where I'm supposed to be. So just take it easy, settle in, because we have to backtrack really quickly. You guys just aren't a happy and married couple. I forgot to do this because we were just having such a great time. I have to let them know that you guys are also amazing entrepreneurs in your own rights, but you have a business together. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, I can't imagine finding a partner who I'd want to spend the rest of my life with right now. And it's hard for me to imagine finding another person who I think I'd go into business with right now as well. So the fact that you found a person who you want to spend your life with and a person who you want to go to business with, that's like almost like a 1 in a million thing right there.
Feels like it.
Yeah, we're extremely blessed, extremely grateful. Yeah. It's interesting because it layers your relationship, right? Because like you go into a relationship with someone and it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, then a married couple relationship. And then there's probably a friend component, right?
I hope so.
For us, we're best friends. We're also, obviously married.
We spend a lot of time together.
And then on top of that, now you layer on business partners. And so it's different hats at different times in your relationship. So if something comes up in your relationship, you have to consider, okay, am I husband? Am I friend? Am I business partner, co-worker, co-founder? Like, which hat am I wearing in this situation that we're dealing with? And so there is a balance there where you have to figure out, what do they need? What does this other person need from me in this moment? And how can I best be there for them to support them? And so there's a layer to it that you have to consider for sure. Yeah.
And it's interesting because before we started our business, it's actually how we met. We worked for the same company. And so, we would walk to work together. We would work down the hall from each other. We would go for a walk, eat lunch together, work for the afternoon, walk home together, spend the evening together. Like, we weren't together shoulder to shoulder for the couple of hours between breakfast and lunch and leaving that we were working. But otherwise we spent a lot of time together, even in our corporate careers. And so it didn't seem as big a leap, I would say, when we decided to start our own business it's funny because on another podcast, someone asked us, why did you decide to go in business together and not do something separately? And we didn't even consider doing something separately. When we decided we wanted to be entrepreneurs, we wanted to do it. Like, it was just blinders. We only wanted to do it together. And so it was almost like working together was a bit of a stepping stone to being able to spend literally every minute of every day almost together.
The thing about it is that when we left our corporate jobs, we didn't do this initially, but with time, we realized that we wanted to design our life. We wanted to figure out what it was that we wanted our life to be. And then we imagined what that was, and we drew a blueprint of how to get there. And part of it was we like spending time together. We want to work together. We want to build a business and have an impact on the world together. And so how does that look? How do we create that? And so our whole goal was to create that. And that's not for everybody. Some people might have a partner that they have completely different passions, and that's totally cool. You can still make that work and have an amazing life and do all the things you want to do. But for us, we had a similar passion of helping people, and we realized that our superpower was in our relationship and our marriage, and so we gravitated towards that, and we built a life around that.
I understand how that other host is feeling. That is a common question that when I first read your profile, I even thought about is married couple, business partners. Was that the goal? Like you said, when you truly are in love and you're like in that honeymoon stage where you're just infatuated with each other, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that shouldn't just be a period. I feel like if we could really take the time and focus, and we've done the work that we want to, that should just be the relationship. That should just be the standard, is to constantly be infatuated with somebody and not get bored of them. Now, we're all people, and I know you'll agree with me. There are probably things that you do separate. You're not on each other's hip 24/7. You both have your own hobbies or just time with your own sets of friends that give you your own separate identity. So after really realizing, I was like, you know what? I feel like working with my wife or partner could actually be pretty cool.
Confirm.
Yeah, you just confirmed that for me.
Can confirm. It is cool. Yeah. But again, like I say, it may be not for everybody, but if it's on your heart to do it, yeah. And you build the relationship foundation so that it's a very strong foundation that it can withstand that, because a lot of stress comes with being entrepreneurs in business, right? Like it's not roses and unicorns and rainbows and sunshine all the time. You get thrown a lot of challenges that you have to work through together. So you have to have that foundation built where you can withstand, those stressful, challenging moments. And you've got the communication, you've got the skills built so that you can go through and attack those situations as a team.
That's something that, once again, a lot of people probably don't think about. Business and pleasure, they don't mix, but in this case it has. And it's really good because when you just have a business partner, it might just be all work. They don't really know all of your strengths. Or when you're in a relationship, they don't see necessarily how hard of a worker you can be or what you'll do to make sure that you succeed. So the fact that you get to experience both sides of each other, I feel like just on both ends also, like I said, just keeps you balanced and makes you better partners for each other. Do you ever have moments where you know where business ends and the relationship begins, or does the whole thing just seem like a blended loop to you?
I was talking about it a little early with the hats, right? Like there are times where you have to really be intentional about who am I in this moment? What role am I playing? Am I playing co-founder and business partner? And we have to be very practical and pragmatic about the business. Or am I playing the role of husband and supporter? Very different roles, right? And so there are moments that bleed into each other, obviously, because we are still a married couple and still working in a business. And you can't help but sometimes, blending the two. And
we're human.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
But I think we do our best most days to give ourselves a bit of a boundary, whether it's a lot of times it's when the workday is sort of wrapping, we go for a walk. And going for a walk, we just kind of debrief on the day. I mean, we were sitting basically like this all day, so it's not like we don't know what went on, but it's still good to just sort of get different perspectives on different things that happened during the day. And so we do a bit of a debrief and just kind of chat about, just life, whatever. But that sort of half an hour or an hour of going outside and walking and then coming back in and starting to make supper or whatever. Sometimes he'll do a little bit of extra something when we get back from the walk, but generally we use the walk as sort of the boundary of the work day is over. And now we've left work people behind, and now we're married best friend people, and we're going to just hang out and have fun for the evening. And that's not to say that we don't have the odd thing that comes up work-wise in the evening. It happens, obviously, but we do our best to try and make that almost mental break and make it a very clear distinction and from work day to no longer work day. That being said, like to your point, in the middle of the work day, we're still married, we're still friends. Like we still it blends for sure, but we do our best.
And I think we're pretty good about making sure that there is dedicated time for just us to be a married couple, where we're not business partners. It's very clear that we are not wearing the business partner hats. We are very clearly husband and wife right now, and we're going on a date. Like yesterday, we went for a date. We went for a drive. We had dinner, and we watched the sun and the ocean, and it was really great. And that was just us being husband and wife, separate from all the other chaos going on in life. So I think you have to be very intentional about that.
Now, that actually brings me into a question that I think this is fun that I don't get to ask. Like I said, this is a fun episode for me because I'm doing a lot of things I said that I wouldn't do or I didn't think I would get to do, at least not right now. I'm going to see how well we know each other. So whether you're putting on business hat or married hat, I want to know how well we know each other. I'm going to ask you each individually, but don't give each other the answer, okay? Yeah. I want to, because I'm not going to know if it's right. You guys are going to know if it's right. So Meredith, I'll start with you. What is one thing that you think is essential for Craig to survive a busy week? Like when you guys are going, or you have like a lot of meetings or something, what's one thing that gets him through?
He needs to exercise. He needs to get outside and sweat to get through the week.
Okay. Now, Craig, don't tell me if it's right or wrong. What do you think is Meredith's answer?
A couple things. She also needs to get exercise, get outside, get in the sun. She also needs good sleep.
If I'm not getting at least like 6 to 7 hours, I revert to a toddler. I'm just delirious. It sounds like I'm just mumbling jargon.
Yeah. I'm very diligent about my sleep. It's very important to me. I'm like at least 7.5 hours. If I can get 8, beautiful, but go to bed early, get up early. Like my sleep is very important.
Yeah. You two do really know each other because I was like, exercise is huge for you, Craig. Like that really helps.
It is. Yeah. Every day I want to get out and either go for a run or we've got the garage set up as like a home gym. So either of the two options, but yeah, get outside. And then also we go for a walk and just get out in nature. So yeah, it's important for sure.
I think like in one of the first episodes of this season with Claude is that as a partner, your partner really doesn't ask for much, but giving them time to work out or exercise, move their body is the least you can do. Because I think anybody who really, if you go on walks, you go on runs or hikes, really just moving your body, exercising, getting the blood pumping, it really does give you a type of focus that's unlike any other.
Yeah.
I feel so much clearer and cleaner afterwards, if that makes sense.
For sure.
100%.
And plus, we spend a lot of time together, but we want to spend as much as possible. So we want to live as long as possible. And I want him to be healthy and live as long as he can, which means he's got to exercise. He's got to focus on his health. And so to your point, the least I can do is give him the space to do that so that I get what I want, which is him to be around.
That's so true. Nobody looks the same in 10 years. But I was like, if you really maintain your body, you could, though. There are those people who just feel like they just never age. Morgan Freeman is a person who's just always felt old to me. Like my entire life. He just hasn't gotten older. He's just always been.
Yeah.
I've heard we've known each other for 9 years, and I'm like, are you still like 15? Like what are you doing? How are you still so cute and baby faced? But exercise is a way to do that. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, so you can't really cheat giving each other the answer. But working on building a kick-ass life, an amazing business, is tough. Do either of you have non-negotiables to help you keep that spark alive? Your business is important, but not at the cost of your own relationship. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, to your point, the first business we started was impacting our relationship. We shut that stuff down like pretty quickly and refocused on ourselves. We've got some non-negotiables for sure in our relationship. And the first one is what he already mentioned. It's the dedicated time. Like we make time for each other. Well, every single day we have time together, but we for sure do at least one date a week where it's like phones are away. You're totally engaged in the conversation and what we're doing. Like there's no, writing emails in your head or running through your to-do list. Like, we are fully engaged in the moment that we're in when we're together. And that is like non-negotiable.
Yeah. And I think another one is, to her point, we connect a little bit every day. And obviously we connect throughout the day, but very dedicated us time in the evening before bed. We will check in with each other and just What was the best part of your day? What was the most frustrating part of your day? Is there anything I can help support you with? Are you dealing with something that you need some help with? Where can I get in there and help? Mm-hmm. It's just checking in and going deeper than the surface level. How was your day? And then you get the surface level, fine. How was yours? We go a little level deeper. We're very intentional about going deeper than that and really understanding what was the best part? What was the worst part? Is there anything I can do? And then that way it gets the other person thinking about that day. You also get to get inside their brain a little bit and understand what they're going through and kind of how they've experienced. Because a lot of the times we might be like this podcast, for example. Let's talk about this. So we're both sitting here. Obviously, we're having a conversation with you, and we are experiencing this podcast together. But our experience of the podcast could be completely different. Right? In this case, it's been a very pleasant experience. I'm sure like we're both experiencing it very similarly, but as an example, it could be something else where one of us maybe didn't experience that the same way. And so just getting a different perspective on the day and how they're dealing with things and what they're going through.
Yeah, we may even just have a different favorite part of this experience, right?
Totally.
Like just those little nuanced differences. And the other non-negotiable is we always go to bed at the same time.
Correct.
Like, it's a little thing that makes a big difference from a closeness, connection, and intimacy perspective. You know, you hear a lot of couples, one's a morning person, one's a night owl, and they go to bed at different times. But there's just something about going to bed at the same time. You do your check-in sort of in bed when the lights are off. You're more comfortable sharing maybe that stuff you would not have shared out on the walk or when the lights are bright. There's just something that's more connecting when you're ready for bed, kind of winding your day down together.
And I love that. You're right. Like you said, just having that time where you both say, hey, the day is done. We've made it together, decompressing and just having a bit of time for intimacy. I feel like not just in relationships, but just in life, we're not really intimate enough. And what I mean by that is we don't take the time to really connect with people as people anymore. We live in such a rapid-paced era where we have so many interactions, but so many times we can't remember interactions we've had with people. I've been in Nashville for, I think, 2 years now, and I've met countless people. But as far as memories made, I can probably name 2 or 3 distinct memories I've made with the people that I interact with routinely. And I was like, that's crazy. 2 years, 2 memories. I lived in Columbus for 8 years, and I can think of hundreds of memories I made. I think we are starting to have less genuine and authentic connections. So the fact that you take that time every night to be like, hey, this is our intimate moment, and we're making something and it's for us, our future. Because in another 10 or 20 years, you'll look back at that and be like, yeah, like this was our thing. Or you'll remember the little conversations you had, the little pillow talk moments.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, part of it is that we live in a fast-paced society. You know, we're always go work, social media, surface level connections. You know, that's sort of the life, the society that we live in. And I think a big part of it, because in order to have that intimacy with someone, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, which means you have to be a little bit brave. There is no vulnerability without courage. They go hand in hand. If you're not a little bit afraid, then it's not vulnerability. They're just one requires the other. And so we're all afraid, right? We all have fear of rejection, of failure, of, you know, not being accepted for who we are. And when we let that fear control us, when we let fear take the driver's seat, and we're afraid someone's not going to accept us for who we are, so we don't share that thing with that person, whether it's not sharing something with your husband, whether it's not sharing something with your friend, you know, when you decide not to share something because you're a little bit afraid of how it might be received, then you put one little brick in the wall between you. And when you don't share enough things, you've got a full-blown wall between you that you've lost that connection. You've lost that intimacy with that person, whether that's your friend, whether that's your girlfriend, whether that's your husband, whether that's your mother, whoever that relationship is with. It's that the level of vulnerability that you're willing to be with that person will dictate how intimate that relationship is and how close that connection will be. So it takes a lot of courage to get into a close relationship with regardless of who it's with.
I think, Meredith, you just gave me my new catchphrase. I've been a bouncer, I've done martial arts, and I've I've been an athlete. All those spaces, you have guys who think they're super machismo, they're just tough guys. But I'm gonna start saying that to like any tough guy I meet now. I was like, you're not that tough. I was like, you're afraid to be. If you think you're so brave, if you think you're so tough, be vulnerable. Because, and then Craig, you can probably speak to this too. I feel like that's the thing that's harder for men to do sometimes, is really be open about what they're feeling or what they're thinking, because we're afraid how. Now, you both have probably have things that you're afraid how people will perceive you. But I think, like I said, just for men, it's being stoic, being closed off is more of is considered tougher than to be
100%.
open about yourself.
Yeah, totally. I grew up sounds like same experience as you with like athletics and sports and trying to be the tough guy, and I had an added experience of my family moved around a lot when I was growing up. So I had to be the new kid in a lot of situations. So that adds another layer of not wanting to be, seen as weak. You want to be the athlete that gets picked. You don't want to be the kid that gets picked last and be afraid of standing out that way. And so I grew up with that one perfectionism of being, I have to be strong, the best, because I don't want to be left behind, anywhere. And I don't want them to see me as weak ever. The weak get picked on. The weak are the ones that get left behind, and I didn't want that. So going through life, I had that perspective, if you will. And it wasn't until I got into my late 30s probably when I really started to realize that it's not weak. That's not weak. When you can stand up for the little person, for the person who's getting picked on, when you can buck the trends, when you can stand up and tell the world that it's not okay to pick on people who are weaker or don't have a voice or aren't able to share their feelings, or when they do share their feelings, you pick on them. Like, it's another level of self-acceptance. I'm able to now speak my truth, tell my person when I'm not feeling my best, when I'm at my worst. She's seen the best, she's seen the worst, she's seen the everyday. So to your point, I think becoming a man growing up is when you are able to tell the things that you would not have said in your 20s. Like, telling the world that, yeah, you know what? I am afraid of rejection, of being judged, and that's a normal thing. We're social creatures. We grew up in different tribes and different things, and so when something happens and you're ostracized and you're kicked, it's actually a safety thing. Like, you would be ostracized and removed from the group, and then you're at risk of dying. But what I've realized is true belonging is being yourself at all times and being part of the group that way. Because a lot of times when we just try to fit into the group, you're not being yourself. So there's a huge difference between belonging and fitting in.
Yeah. In fact, the only way to belong is to be yourself.
Yeah.
You'll only get to feel that sense of belonging if you're actually yourself.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that goes back to the original point of the lack of genuine connections that we've been having just as a society, because some of us don't know who we are. That takes a lot of time, a lot of work. Like you said, it's not till you're in your 30s where you're like, you know what? This is me, or it's okay to do this.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have to go through those periods where I feel like we have imposter syndrome, or we are just part of the crowd. We're not standing out. The best relationships I've had are when I was super young, and then I think now pushing into 30. Because the one thing I will say about kids, they're authentic, to say the least. I was like, they'll always say what's on their mind, for better or worse. And I think because they do that, like, that's why some of your childhood friends are your best friends, is because you didn't hold back with them. They didn't hold back with you. You went through some relatively tough times together, the ups and downs. And the same for when you're older. I was like, we may not be going through as many tough times together, but you have a more defined sense of self. I have a more defined sense of self, and we have boundaries. So between those two, we start to forge a more genuine connection and be like, we say no a lot. Like, when you're younger, you don't, like, you hate saying no to your friends. Like, when you're in that middle adolescent stage, You think you always have to say yes, you always have to go out, you have to do whatever they want to do, or vice versa. And that's just disingenuous. And so when that relationship ends or you move away, you think this is what friendship is. It's just saying yes, doing whatever. No, friendship is an authentic relationship is saying no, is being your weird, quirky self or your vulnerable self that you feel like you have to tuck away because it's not widely accepted. No, when you can be that true, authentic, tucked away self with a person, I think that's kind of my new goal. I just want to be that person with everybody who's in my life, you know? And if you don't like that person or you like that person, but you don't want to do all the same things, that's okay. You can see me as much or as little as you want to. And like you said, that took time for me to really realize to be like, we don't need to be Siamese twins. Like, we have our own existences. I'm okay being a side character in your story and vice versa. But that doesn't mean that we won't have great moments together. So.
I think it's fantastic that you've got that level of self-awareness before you turn 30. I would not have been so miserable turning 30 if I was where you are.
Yeah, it's huge growth when you can get to that place where you love yourself so much that you accept yourself regardless of, situation or who you're with or whatever. You're going to be your true authentic self because you're safe in that space. You love yourself and you're completely fine with being that badass version of you wherever you are.
And the people who are meant for you will be drawn to that. And then you never have to cover yourself. You never have to fit in because the people who are drawn to who you actually are will be your people, will be your person.
Yeah.
Like the people who've met me in the last year, I'm sorry for them, but I'm also thankful for them because, like I said, they're just getting the unfiltered me, whether that's in my career or in my personal life. First impressions are super important. And how people view you. I'm not saying that they're not important, but it's just more authentic. I literally told somebody, so for our younger audience who haven't found their partner or just trying to find their way in a career, because you guys just aren't a couple. You're both successful people. So I want to probe both sides of the mind. Is there a piece of advice that you would give people who are young in their career, just starting, but they also want to make time for relationships?
Yeah. Early in my career, I was a massive people pleaser. You asked me to do something. Do you have capacity to do this? I would always say yes. I said no, never. My boundaries were non-existent. And I also had imposter syndrome for sure. And so I was always trying to prove myself to myself by proving myself to everybody else, which really I didn't realize till later came from a giant lack of self-worth and self-confidence. And by constantly saying yes to everyone else, I was saying no to myself because I never left anything for me. I never left anything, had nothing left over for myself because I was always doing for other people because I never said no to anyone because I was a giant people pleaser. And so by doing that, I was perpetuating the cycle of my low self-worth and my low self-confidence. And it becomes hard to meet your person when your self-worth is low, right? Your self-confidence is low, not showing up as your best self. And so for me, the best advice I could have given my younger self, in my 20s would be to start saying no, have boundaries. You're at work and you care about your job, you're doing a good job, you're working hard, but you're working hard between the hours of 8 and 5 or whatever the hours happen to be for you. You're getting paid to work between the hours of 8 and 5 and do your best and give your all. But after that, they don't get that time. That's time is for you. So being able to have a boundary and to say no to some things is scary, super duper scary, but it's how you build your own self-worth and your own self-confidence. And the other thing I would say that I wish I had taken advice on in my 20s was stop caring so much what everybody else thinks. It really doesn't matter. It seems like it matters what the HR person thinks and what your boss thinks because you want the next promotion and all those things. But really, the only thing that matters is what you think. And so can you look at yourself in the mirror and respect yourself more for what you're doing or not doing or saying or not saying? So that question, does this make me respect myself more or less? And that's the only question that matters. I wish I could have stopped caring what other people think a lot earlier.
Love both of those suggestions, and mine are similar. They're adjacent a little bit. I would say one, do the work to know and love yourself first. You can only give love to others that you have for yourself. Like if you don't love yourself, whatever you have in a relationship is not going to go well. So putting that work on yourself and understand who you are, what you want, and really double down on liking and loving yourself. So doing that work, I would say is one. Because I think once you get to that place where you're confident with yourself, then the rest of what we just talked about and being able to say no, it's easier to say no to others when you are there for yourself, you love yourself, you have those boundaries. Like when you have that self-love, that's when you have boundaries. So I would say mine's somewhat, adjacent. Another one I would say is, you mentioned like the person that's out there grinding right now. They're just grinding because this is the time, this is when I've got the energy. That's cool. Do that if that's what fills you up. But if it makes you miserable, understand why that is. And if it's something that's not actually meant for you, if you're only doing it because you feel like it's the right thing to do, but it's not what fills you up, do that evaluation and understand what does fill you up and go after it. I lived the default life, that life plan of go to school, get good grades, go to college, get more good grades, graduate. But what I realized halfway through that journey was, this is not my journey. This is someone else's journey. I wish I had earlier known that we all have the ability to change at any given moment and choose what is right for us, whatever that is. It goes back to really understanding who you are and what you want and loving yourself. But if you do that work of knowing yourself, who you are, what you want, and then design your life to get those things that you want. And don't just settle for the life that you think is going to make others happy. A lot of times we do things because our parents did them, and that's an expectation of our parents or our friends or our kids, guidance counselors, or all those types of things. And it's do the things that matter to you, the things that light you up. Listen to your intuition, I would say.
Now, I love what both of you had to say. This next question took me years to articulate, and I just found the words for it today. And that is, have either of you ever thought about, now that you've both been entrepreneurs for so long, do you think you could ever go back to working for somebody?
No.
I'm ruined.
Unemployable.
And the reason I ask that is because I've noticed here in probably like the last 2 years that I'm not as great of an employee as I used to be. And I think that's because I started this business. I started doing this. At my current job, I love a lot of aspects of it. There are a lot I don't like. But one of the things I love is the owner's there all the time. And so we have chats, or I work with him sometimes hand in hand. And I find it really hard. I was like, I want to be a good employee for you. I want to help your vision come true. But at the same time, as a fellow entrepreneur, as a leader, a owner in my own right, I was like, I don't agree with just how things go here. And so I find myself day in and day out just fighting that struggle between employee and entrepreneur is the two wolves, so to speak, in my life right now. And I was like, I think that's hard. And it especially because I feel like the employee side is something when you're younger, you're taught you have to get the next promotion, you have to work, and it's not till you're older that you'll really be successful, you really have money saved up, you'll really live this quality of life that you want. Whereas the entrepreneur in me is like, no, I have ideas of my own. I have a quality thing that I can provide to people that I don't think is out there, or at least not the way I can do it. So that's a question I just had to ask, or I was like, I needed the verification that, no, I'm not crazy, that
You're not crazy.
if I'm an entrepreneur, it is hard to go back.
Yeah, you're not crazy. Once you start down that path of creating your own life and having control of your own time, your control of your own freedom, you're basically trying to build your own freedom, right? Like for me, that's what drove me to entrepreneurship is freedom. And freedom might mean something different to everybody, but for me, it's doing what I want, when I want, with who I want, when I want, right? Like it's being able to control my own time. And once you get into that life of being able to do that, it's really, really hard to get back into a box that someone has created for you. And now you have to live inside that box. Mm-hmm. So you're definitely not crazy.
But it's like, to your point from the very beginning, it is not all sunshine and rainbows.
No, it's not.
Really freaking hard. Some days are awesome and some days are a slog. It's very much a, kill what you eat. It's great. You have the freedom. You do what you want to do. but it all rests on your shoulders. So like there's,
it's not for the faint of heart.
yeah,
It's not for the faint of heart. The freedom that you want, that you build, that life that you build, it does come with a price. Like there is a journey that you go through. It's not as simple as you show up for work and you get a paycheck, right? And that's right for some people, and for other people, they want something different than that.
Like we talked about in the beginning with the relationships, like, you expect to have, be married by the time you're 30. You have the timeline that you want your life to be on. It's the same with your business. You have an idea of what milestones you should be hitting as an entrepreneur in your business too. Chances are you're not going to hit them. You're not going to be exactly where you think you should be, but you're where you need to be when you need to be there. And there's a lot of surrender, I guess I would say, in entrepreneurship. That
there is. And I think one of the things that I've really found lately is that your business goes as you go. And what's really great, Josh, is that you're doing that work now. Is like you're putting in the work on your mindset and becoming the best version of you. That's going to serve you as an entrepreneur because, like I say, your business goes as you go. So if you don't do that growth, your business won't grow either. By coming into it with that mindset of growth, be the best version of me, that's going to serve you well into entrepreneurship as your business grows with you.
Because the coolest thing about entrepreneurship is we can be successful in our corporate America, in our corporate lives, without doing that work. I don't have to be the best version of me to get the next promotion. I got lots of promotions. They were cool. I really enjoyed all of them. However, I still wasn't the best version of me when I got those promotions. It wasn't until I took this entrepreneurship journey and had to do the personal growth work and really become that highest and best, like, superhero version of me so that my business could grow. I just think it's the coolest thing that not only do you end up with a great business, but you also end up as this like superhero version of yourself. Like, I love that that's a prerequisite to having the business you want, is becoming the best version of you. I think that's a really cool bonus.
I love this conversation that we've had today, because I said this at the beginning before we started recording, that I really wanted to learn from you two today. It's rare that I really get to work with fellow entrepreneurs because I'm still fairly new to it. Like, we've only really taken this seriously in the last not seriously, but devoting more time and effort into it the last 2 years. So I've really only been doing this for 2 years. There's so much room to learn. There's a lot of things I don't know. And I think talking to you guys has really helped bring an extra layer of clarity to the picture that I want, not only for my business, but my life. And I think, like you said, becoming the best me makes all those pieces click in that much easier. And I know a lot of people who are watching this right now, because I know you're still with us, there are always things that we want in life that we just don't know how to get to, or it's not vivid enough to make sense. And so you two have done a really great job, I feel like, of articulating some of these points that whether people are struggling in the relationship or their business, I think they're struggling a little less now.
Appreciate
so I got to
that.
say thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Before we get out of here, is there anything that you've never really had the opportunity to talk about that you think has just really enriched your life, either in business or in your relationship?
Something that we've really started talking about a lot lately together, and we're still formulating kind of the points around this, but we talked a little bit about it on our own podcast, is the notion that you are 100% responsible for absolutely everything in your life, including your relationship. So if you're in a relationship with another person, it's not 50-50. It's 100-100. We don't go 50% and she goes 50%, because that's when stuff falls through the cracks. But if we show up as 100%, 100% in every aspect of our life, accountable, that's when you are going to, one, always be the best version of you in your relationship, but also in every other aspect of your life. So it's not 99%, 50%, 40%. It's 100% all the time. 100% responsible, 100% accountable for everything that goes on in your life and relationship.
And I think it's especially a difficult concept sometimes to wrap your brain around from a relationship perspective, because if there's two of us here, why am I the one that's 100% accountable? And in theory, you both are 100% accountable. And what that means is you're teammates. You're on the same team. When something needs to be done, you do it. You don't, well, he'll probably get to that. That's his 50%. Once I see something that needs to be done, I do it because I'm 100% accountable for the state of our marriage. Or, I think he owes me an apology. But if I'm really looking hard at it from a 100% accountability lens, I probably owe him an apology too. And rather than waiting for his apology to then give him mine, if I'm 100% accountable for our marriage, I'm going to take the first step and I'm going to apologize first. I'm going to say I love you first. I'm going to raise a difficult conversation because I'm struggling with something. I'm going to be brave enough and willing to take the first step every time because I'm 100% accountable. And if he has that same mentality in our marriage, look out. Your relationship is unstoppable if you both are 100% accountable.
Now, this is something that we've talked about several times throughout the course of the show. And I agree with what you say. And it feeds into another principle of, of partnership is, sometimes you're not 100. I want to make this distinction and tell me if what I'm saying is not what you actually meant. But we talked about this. We're human. We don't always have 100%. And sometimes you might be at 80 and your partner, needs to match that. I think what Meredith was saying here isn't that you should always, you should be at 80 and expect your partner to be at 120. No, I think what you were saying is that you're always at 100%, even when you're not at your 100%. If that, okay.
That is 100% correct. No, you're right. On any given day, your 100%, your all-out effort is a little bit different day to day, depending on how you're feeling, you're sick, whatever. So you're giving your 100%.
Because I felt like if I didn't make that distinction, somebody would hear it, and then they would really take it to left field. So I was like, nope, let's bring this back. I find that sometimes we really have a hard time giving ourselves grace. We're super hard on ourselves. We like to use that F word, failure, a lot when it comes to ourselves. And I'm failing as a partner, or, I'm not living up to the standard. As long as you're really giving your 100%, true, that 100 looks different all the time. But as long as you think and you know that this is the most I have right now, as long as you're doing that, then you're being the best partner you can be. And that's what your partners should be asking of.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty. Well, before we wrap things up, I already have to say this. We're ending season 2, guys. It's been one hell of a journey. I know I've had a lot of growth this season, and hopefully you guys have too. But Meredith Craig, I got to bring you back. Season 3, it has to happen.
We would love to come back.
Let's do it.
We spent so much time talking about relationships today. We didn't really get to talk too much about business. But you know what? I think this was the conversation that we were meant to have right now.
100%.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Yep.
Obviously, while the season's ending, you guys are going to need another podcast to listen to. So, Meredith, Greg, tell us a little bit about your show, where they can find you. What's going on with you?
Yeah, we've got a podcast, and it's called the Road of Life podcast.
We're approaching episode 52 coming up here, and I think it'll be October or September.
And so we've had a mix of business and relationship episodes. They've been more relationship focused towards the end, but there's a good mix of business and relationship conversations on our podcast. And we have guests from time to time too. And so the guests are usually on to talk about relationship and business, actually. They're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, we focus on mindset of an entrepreneur, or just what would be a mindset of someone on a personal growth journey. It doesn't even have to be related to business, right? It's something that everyone needs, is that personal growth, that mindset. We're humans. We all have that trajectory of wanting to grow. It's basically in the spirit of that.
Love the fact that you guys are also kind of in that same space of consistently putting things out, but also leaving time for yourself. So if the audience has not learned anything from both of us, it's take the time for you, because if you're not the best you're not presenting the best you in any other aspect that you're living right now. Guys, thank you for making it to the end of this episode. I know you already liked the episode. I've known you shared it with your friend, your colleague, your significant other, because you might be starting a business here together soon as well. But if you want to connect more with these two amazing souls, I'm going to leave their handles, their website, all down below in the description. But they're also going to tell you what their handles, in case you guys can't type right now, you want to be able to hear it. So where can they find you?
They can find us on Instagram, and we are at Meredith and Craig.
Listen, easy peasy. I've said their name 100 times today. 100 times today. So you won't forget that. At Meredith and Craig on Instagram. Like I said, their website's going to be tagged below. Go show them some love. Check out the Road of Life podcast as well. And I will see all you amazing bachelors and bachelorettes in season 3.